Hi guys, welcome to
Monday with the Mavens.
We're talking all about
Body
fat
fat
today.
Body fat, yeah, you know, the squishy.
It's so interesting. I mean, of course, most of us know about body fat, right? But there's a lot to it, and there's a lot we can do about it. And so, we mentioned in stories earlier, but we want to talk about the types of body fat. We want to talk about essential body fat. We want to talk about non-essential body fat, the dangers of too much body fat, what we can do about body fat. Can you spot treat body fat? We just said body fat a lot of times.
A lot of talk about body fat today.
Yeah, and I guess I would like to preface it by saying that in no means we're not here to talk about body image, right? Like, it's really important that we can feel good in our own skin. And I think as humans, we often come in different shapes and sizes. However, too much body fat, it's a fact that it's really dangerous for your health. Like, it is really dangerous for your organs. It leads to chronic disease and it leads to early mortality. And so it's a fact. And so I think that it's really important that we talk about it.
Yeah. Let's do it. Let's dive in.
Okay.
So there are, I think that there's a lot of misnomers about fat. And I actually, in the little bit of research that I was doing, I learned a ton. And I'm excited to kind of share some tips and tricks on, we're going to get to this kind of at the end, but I wanted to give you guys a little nugget, a little carrot to follow. At the end, we're going to talk about really good ways to burn unwanted fat off of your bodies, healthy ways to do that, what that looks like, ways that are practical, sustainable, and things that you can start doing immediately if that is one of your goals. And also, we want people to know, like, yes, being overweight and having too much fat inside our bodies is not good for us. However, healthy looks different on every person. And so we are not here to tell anybody that they need to lose weight or lose fat or anything like that. We just want you to know what we know and have the best education to make the best decisions for your life. So let's get into
We want you to feel good.
Yeah, honestly, that's all, what it's all about is feeling good. So let's start talking about the 3 different kinds of fat that we can carry in our body, because there are, go ahead, 3.
I was just going to say, I just always feel like I have to say this. We are looking at 2 cameras, one for Facebook, one for Instagram. So if our eyes are wandering, that is why.
Someday that'll be different.
Also, if you guys have any questions or have something to add, like always, please feel free to do it in the comments. The comments stick around for Facebook. They go away on Instagram once we repost it. But this is one of those that I think I hope will be really helpful to be able to go back and listen to as well. Body fat has always been fascinating to me, and just to give you kind of a 30,000-foot view real fast, we just want to start by educating on the types of fat, and there's a reason for that. Like, it is important to understand that we have white fat, brown fat, beige fat, we're going to talk about, and that there's a difference between subcutaneous fat and visceral fat, and we're going to talk about that.
And essential fat.
And essential fat.
Yeah, so let's just dive in. Let's talk about the 3 kinds: white, brown, and beige. And we have an old reel where we're in the cold plunge and it was real cold, and Emmy said something about brown fat that took me off guard, and I just was cracking up about it. But anyway, what she was talking about, I'm going to actually start with white fat. So white fat is like adipose tissue. It is underneath your skin. Actually, all of the fat on our bodies is underneath our skin for the most part. But that's the stuff that we can, like, where you look at your skin and you're like, man, you can feel it.
It's the most common type of fat when we're thinking about fat.
When we're talking white fat. Yeah, with body fat, the majority of our body fat most of the time is white fat. And that's usually what people are like, I need to lose weight. It's because they have too much adipose tissue, too much white fat. Whereas if we talk about beige fat and brown fat, those are different. So brown fat, and this was the kicker for me. This is what really triggered it for me to cement it, is when babies are born, they're born with a lot of brown fat. In fact, the majority of the fat on their bodies is brown fat, because they can't regulate their temperatures. They don't have a shiver response. They can't sweat. They don't have the same kind of temperature balancing mechanisms that our bodies as adults do. And so they have this brown fat inside their bodies, which helps regulate their temperatures. It helps keep them warm. And what we want, actually, as adults, is more brown fat, because brown fat is really thermogenic. It's like the furnace. If we're talking about how fat burns, you want brown fat, because brown fat actually will burn other fat. It helps to mobilize
Burns
and
your fatty acids.
Yeah, it helps to mobilize and oxidize the fat within your body. So if we can turn our white fat, which we can, and our beige fat and convert it to brown fat, that's what we want to do. And we'll get into that a little bit later. So as adults, most of our brown fat is held in our necks and in the middle of our backs and our spines, which makes a lot of sense because we want to have those parts of our body really protected. Our spine is protected by brown fat, and so is like our spinal, what's that called right here? Yeah, right. You know, the back of your neck is all surrounded by brown fat, which keeps your spine nice and warm, which helps keep you alive, which is really important. And then there's the in-between. There's the beige fat, which is not totally white fat and it's not totally brown fat, but it's easily mobilized into brown fat. It's actually easier to mobilize beige fat into brown fat than it is white fat into brown fat. Anyway, it's like a little bit of both.
And we're going to get into this, but there is a lot of research that's happening right now on trying to better understand beige fat and how it can be effectively converted to brown fat. Now, we're getting kind of technical here, and we're doing that for a purpose because I think the most important underlying thing or biggest takeaway is we do have the ability to impact our white fat, our brown fat, and our beige fat. But when we're looking at white fat, that is usually predominantly, it's going to be the fat, like Haley said, that accumulates under your skin, directly under your skin, that primarily is in your abdomen, your buttocks,
Your thighs.
your thighs. Like it's all the places where it's where you typically see fat storage, right? And then we're going to get into the difference between subcutaneous and visceral fat and how incredibly dangerous it can be from an organ standpoint. And so I think for right now, like understanding white fat is the fat that we really want to try to look at how can we manage it and how can we reduce it in comparison to our lean muscle mass.
Yeah.
And so that's what we call body composition, right? So we really want to try to keep our overall percentage of body fat within a range, depending on if you're athletic, if you're non-athletic, there's a lot of different factors. Not everybody fits into the same box. And then we also want to look at how can we effectively activate our brown fat and how can we effectively potentially shift some of our white fat and for sure our beige fat into brown fat so that we have a really effective fat burning machine, unless you're trying to gain weight, but that's typically muscle, not fat. So,
Yeah. Yep, and I think that that's a little bit of, some biochemistry for you guys, and you don't need to know all of that. Really what you need to know is our bodies are comprised of 3 different kinds of fat, and it's color-coded, so it's easy, right? And then there are different types within those. So Emmy had mentioned there's adipose fat, which is the fat right under our skin. It's most of the time when people are like, I need to lose weight, they're talking about the fat that you can see on your stomach, on your butt, on your thighs, different places where people accumulate fat. And then there's visceral fat, and visceral fat is the most dangerous, and it is you can't see it. It's inside our bodies, surrounds our organs. Like if you hear people talk about fatty liver, fatty kidneys, it's the fat that deposits itself around your organs, and it is so deadly. It is like really, really deadly. Now, generally speaking, people in the Western world tend to eat a diet pretty high in processed foods. And if you want to go back to our live from last week where we talked about seed oils, alcohol, and sugar, a lot of times those 3 things will contribute to visceral fat.
Yep.
And so by eliminating those 3 things from your diet is one step in ridding your body of visceral fat. And then we'll talk more about how to do that. But anyway, we really want you to know that the fat that is surrounding your organs is deadly.
And oftentimes visceral fat is actually found in people who have a tendency to have substantial midsection fat. So it's not just the fat around your organs, but oftentimes it's found in the belly fat also. And visceral fat is what you find is often leading to several different forms of disease. It can be a contributing factor to a handful of different cancers. It can be, for sure, can lead to diabetes, can lead to, heart issues, can lead to organ failure. Like there are a number of things that if you can try to really focus on reducing your visceral fat, and there are ways to measure it. In fact, it was so cool. We do a live every week.
A Zoom
every week with just our clients. We do it on Monday mornings, and we had one of our clients that joined that had a full body scan that was able to see over a year the change not only in her overall body fat percentage, but her visceral fat.
Specifically.
And she actually hasn't been able to work out in the last year for some medical reasons, but she has drastically changed her nutrition. And not only has she had a wonderful array of physical benefits, but her visceral fat has gone down substantially.
I was going to say significantly.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys, that in itself is amazing. Even if somebody might not lose overall like consolidation of weight per se, but they can reduce their visceral fat in their body, your longevity significantly increases.
Yeah.
Your biological age likely significantly decreases. And that's a whole nother subject that we could get into. But if you can be in tune with the fat in your body and how it's affecting you and your overall health and your longevity, and start to make some small shifts to try to be within a healthy range for you, it's a game changer.
Yeah. And I think that we should probably just talk about this. Most people already know this, but it's important just to reiterate that if you are somebody whose body fat percentage is too high for your size of person, for your height and age and those things, you know, it can lead to diabetes, heart disease, increased blood pressure, stroke, hormone imbalance, irregulated metabolism, dementia. It's just
huge effects on the brain.
Yeah, cancer. The list goes on and on and on and on. And honestly, these are all things that can be controlled. Well, we'll talk about all of the ways that you can control it, but these are things that you can control yourselves, which is really important. So
I also, and I don't want to put people in a box at all. It's funny. I thought that was your phone.
No.
I don't want to put people in a box by any means, but I think it is important to just talk generalities.
Generalities.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Generalities.
Can you say that? Anyways, just in terms of like, we oftentimes have people say like, what body fat should I shoot for? It depends.
Yeah.
It totally depends. If we are just talking about a non-athletic person and we're just looking at like a general broad scope of a non-athlete and where they should fall, what research is saying right now for women is somewhere between 21 and 31%. We'd of course like to see
Body
that on
fat.
the lower end of body fat, like complete body fat. So that's taking into account all of the fats within
Whether
the body.
you go in and do a body scan or if you do like a caliper, you remember in high school where they would come and they would pinch your skin and then they would give you your body fat percentage. That's what we're talking about.
And then for men, a non-athlete is going to fall somewhere between 14 and 24%. Now, we also, I think, would be remiss if we didn't talk about essential body fat, because some body fat is actually really critical for several different bodily functions, especially our endocrine system, our hormones. And so men,
and especially for women, like I'd say less for men than for women. It is like, and I think that this is where a little bit of a hang up comes for women especially, is that we have to have a certain amount of fat on our bodies and that we're taking in through our food and nutrition in order to have a healthy endocrine system and hormones and absorbing vitamins, and that's what Emmy's going to talk about here in just a second. So I know a lot of women, when you start a macro plan, are really nervous because sometimes, you know, if you come in and you're not eating enough fat, we may increase your fat intake, and that's scary sometimes. But it's really in order to support your bodily systems that require that essential fatty acids in order for your body to function correctly.
And interestingly, healthy fat intake can lead to healthy fat body fat reduction.
Yeah.
It's really, really interesting, especially if you have a balanced intake and you're eating, you know, macronutrient dense foods. And so that's we're going to get into that.
Yeah. There's a lot we're going to get into.
I know. I just want to touch on essential body fat. So we talked about just a broad range. Now those were for non-athletes. Which is the majority of our clients. We definitely have some performance athletes, which are super fun to work with. But for essential body fat, women require, like Haley mentioned, significantly more essential body fat than men. So women require somewhere between 10 and 13%. So a lot of women, when they get too low in body fat for too long, they'll no longer have menstruation. They'll have, you know, a cascade of hormonal issues oftentimes. And then men, their essential body fat, most of them have more than this, is 2 to 5%. So they don't require as much for hormone production and for organ protection. If you think about women being able to reproduce, oftentimes you're thinking about that fat is a component of that. When women undereat, oftentimes that can lead to fertility issues. And we see that. I mean, it's so exciting when we see women that start consistently fueling themselves that have historically struggled with infertility. Not that it's 100% fixed by any means, but we've had several women that have been able to go on and get pregnant, which is just like so satisfying.
It's actually kind of my favorite thing ever.
Yeah, it's really, really cool.
It's sometimes a surprise for women though. Like we've had a couple who are like, I'm pregnant and I didn't know I could.
Yeah.
And so.
The other thing that I will mention is I have a female client who is just really responsive. Their body has been incredibly responsive. So she didn't have a lot of fat to lose in the first place, but she's lost a significant amount for her on what we consider a reverse. So climbing calories week over week. When we get to the top of a reverse, we would typically consider some form of short-term calorie deficit. But we're going to look at each of our clients individually. If we were to take this client through a deficit, she might get into too low of a range of body fat that wouldn't be healthy for her. So we're going to customize her plan. So once again, it's just all so individual. Now, that's not super common, but there are people who just respond metabolically so quickly when you start consistently fueling their body. Yeah. And so I think it's really important to understand like where you're at, what is healthy, what your goals are, and the most effective way to get there.
Yeah. So a couple other things that those essential fatty acids do for our bodies specifically, our brain is made up of fat. If you're not fueling yourself with enough fat during the day, then your brain suffers big time. Yeah. So we really want to make sure that we're getting enough fat, not just for our reproductive organs and our reproductive health, but also for our brains, also our bones. Our bones require a lot of fat. Also, our bone marrow, which is inside, which builds and creates the blood in our bodies, is made up essentially of fatty acids. And so that's really important to keep our bones healthy, our brains, the membranes around our cells are really fatty. And so we need this essential fat in order to function in life. And if we remove it all, then all of a sudden our bodily systems that rely on that fat start to take a nosedive, and we don't want to do that.
What we don't need is excessive visceral fat, because that is what leads to disease. Yes. And so, our bodies are sophisticated. And when you start reducing inflammation in the body, consistently fueling your body, and doing some of these other things we're going to talk about, it's going to use the unhealthy stored fat as energy. And as long as you are wise about continuing to fuel your body, it's going to keep the essential fat where it's needed to protect your body and protect your endocrine system and allow you to continue to produce hormones at the right level. So our bodies are amazing, you guys. We just need to give them what they need.
Honestly, it's like every time I dive in and start studying a part of our bodies, I'm just like, man, we are incredible, you guys.
We are.
Pretty
You're
incredible,
buddy.
So are you.
Well, thanks, man. Okay, so for those of you guys just joining, we're talking all about body fat. So far we've jumped into the difference between white fat, between brown fat, between beige fat, and then we talked about subcutaneous fat versus visceral fat and why it's important to know the difference. We talked about ranges for body fat percentage, and we've also talked about essential fat, ranges for essential fat, and why it's important. So now, do you want to get into what we can do about reducing fat?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay,
so there's nobody on earth, I don't feel like, at least if you are a Western cultured person, has ever not heard of a diet, right? So there are a million different diets out there, and the whole goal of different diets, basically for the most part, is to reduce body fat. Most people who start a diet want to eliminate some form of body fat. They're doing it, or maybe you're doing it to just try something out. I like to try out lots of different things and see how my body reacts. But most of the time, most people's goal is to have a physical reduction in body fat. And the old adage of a calorie in and a calorie out, very generally speaking, is true. If you burn more calories than you take in, you will lose fat. However, not every calorie is made the same.
No,
and so it is different if you are taking in 100 calories of ice cream versus 100 calories of chicken breast. Like those calories are totally different and your body reacts differently to those. So I will say a foundation set on healthy nutrition and proper macro intake for your body specifically is the number one key to reducing body fat. There are so many other things that we'll talk about also, and I think sleep and hydration are the other two that I would put up at the very tip top, but nutrition, sleep, and hydration, I think those are the three. For me, if I had to pick three, those are the holy trinity of fat loss.
And let's talk about that for a minute. And I know we talk about nutrition a ton, but we are talking
That's
about body
our job
fat today. Yeah, it is. And when we think about that, because I'll use an example. The other day we had a client that wrote in because we were doing an Ask Us Anything. And she said it kind of tongue in cheek, but she was like, how can I be eating so much more every day and still losing weight? And so this goes against the calories in, calories out, right? And here's the thing. When somebody undereats significantly for any period of time, their metabolism is going to downregulate, right? It's going to go into survival mode because it's not used to getting enough fuel to operate. So it's going to start storing. Then in addition to that, maybe if you're eating, 700, 800, 1200 calories on the weekdays, but then maybe on the weekends, you're having this overload of 2000, 3000 calories because you're having drinks and dessert and pizza and whatever it may be. Things you still can have, but what's happening is your body now is used to getting fewer calories, and so now it's getting this surplus. It doesn't know what to do with it, and so then it stores it as fat.
For energy, because your body's like, oh, now I'm getting the fuel I need to fuel my body, and so since I know I'm not going to get it in the next few days, because this is how things go, my human undereats and then my human overeats, and so it takes that energy, that fat, and it stores it because it's like, I'm going to need to get into this fat storage during the week.
Yeah.
But it also, our bodies, you guys, it's so crazy. They're so smart. When our metabolism downregulates, all of our body systems slow down. Mm-hmm. So not just your metabolism, your digestion slows down, your brain cognition slows down. The amount of time it takes for messages to travel through your energy goes down. Yeah. Everything goes down. So you might, maybe you remember being a fidgeter, and we'll talk about fidgeting later, and you were a fidgeter in high school or maybe in early adulthood, and you just don't fidget anymore. A lot of times it's because if you don't fuel your body with enough fuel, it eliminates all the extra movement that it can.
I still fidget.
Yeah, well, you eat enough. That's why. I'm a fidgeter too. And we'll talk about fidgeting later. I actually have a fun anecdote about fidgeting. But anyway, our bodies, they downregulate everything. So when our energy production goes down, it's because our body's like, you don't have enough fuel to give you the energy you need to go for a walk or to go exercise or to go do the things or to even sleep well. Yeah. And so it's just a spiral of like, I don't know.
It is. And so then we have this downregulated metabolism. So then what we love getting to do, especially if a client is consistent for a season and is willing to track, is we take that baseline, right? And we see, okay, you have a downregulated metabolism. It's not working well for you. You have fat storage. You're already eating in what should potentially be a deficit for your size, for your activity level, all of that. So then we find their baseline, and then we slowly and methodically, week over week, as long as there's consistency.
I was just going to say, if.
Yeah, we'll increase the calories, because then what happens, and we'll shift macros, because depending on goals, a lot of people are under eating protein. Not everybody, and everybody has a different protein threshold. And some people are under eating fat, and they need that for hormone production. A lot of people are afraid of carbs, and you need that for healthy thyroid support and energy. And so we find that balance, and we keep shifting them until we get to the right threshold, and we keep slowly increasing calories. Well, what the beautiful thing is, we have this sophisticated metabolism that's been sluggish that now starts saying, okay, I'm going to consistently get this. Okay, I'm going to work with this. Okay, I'm going to start producing hormones at an appropriate level to bring this person harmony. Okay, I'm going to give them more fuel for their brain. Okay, I'm going to burn this. And it just goes up and up and up. We get people eating significantly more calories. That example that I was using of that client, she's eating over 1,000 more calories a day than when she first started. And she continues to shed fat. Lose weight, but shed fat.
And has more energy, sleeps better, balanced hormones. I mean, it is like...
And minimized, if not completely eliminated pain. And so, and we see that time and time again because our bodies need fuel to function. And if we do not give them fuel, they will go into hibernation and they will start shutting down on us, and we will start feeling it in very subtle and then suddenly not so subtle ways.
Yeah.
And we'll start moving towards disease, you guys. Like, we will move towards disease. I have been there. Like, it is no fun.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be. Like, you don't have to be. And so
if you think about your metabolism, and we're getting, I don't want to say we're getting off base, we're just
Yeah.
on a little side tangent, but it's super relative. But if you
Yeah.
think of your metabolism as the furnace inside your body,
Yeah.
like everybody has a furnace. And if you don't fuel the furnace, then the furnace can't fuel you, right? It can't do anything for you. And so your body really struggles to perform the necessary things that it needs to do every day. When you fuel your furnace appropriately, then all of a sudden you start getting amazing, like, non-scale victories, more energy, better sleep, hormone balance, and the list goes on and on and on. But you have to fuel yourself. You can't get up in the morning. I think that we have an unrealistic expectation on ourselves. Like, if we want to lose, most people, and maybe this is an overgeneralization, but I feel like most people are like, I need to lose weight, I'm going to the gym. And they go to the gym and you kill yourself at the gym over and over and over again. It should be, I want to lose weight, I need to look at what I'm eating, because honestly, 80 to 90% of people's weight loss goals happen in the kitchen.
their body composition has everything to do with nutrition.
Yeah.
And then the perfection comes in the gym, honestly, you guys.
It is how it is. And I know that it's easier sometimes to just get a gym membership and go to the gym.
Now I need that for my I need that for my brain and for sure.
But like, that's not the answer to weight loss.
No.
It's just one piece, and if I may, it's a very small piece of the puzzle. When it comes to truly changing your body composition, it starts in the kitchen.
Yeah. And I just want to share a couple real tangible items on nutrition specific to fat loss before we move on from nutrition. So, we're going to start with the foundation of nutrition because it is critical for change. It is critical for change, and it doesn't have to be super complicated. Like, it really doesn't. And I think, and I'll just throw this in there right now, like, that's where a coach can come in and really looking at the whole picture and educating and moving you along through the process and giving you the tools that you need to be successful so that you can ultimately have a healthier body fat percentage, a leaner body composition, and sustainable results with a higher calorie intake. Like, that is the whole goal for the large majority of our clients. Now, whether you're doing macros or not, I think some really important things to keep in mind are, yes, our clients can technically eat whatever they want as long as it fits their macros, and they should have success. We would not be doing our job, and we say,
you guys hear this a lot, but this is exactly how we feel.
Yeah, so. If we didn't at least educate on the role of inflammation. And so I just want to talk about a couple real basic things real fast. One is, we've talked about protein a lot. We have a whole live on it. But if you are under eating protein, if you can work to slowly increase your protein over time, you don't want to go from 0 to 60 overnight. So if you're a 150-pound person and you're only eating 60 grams of protein a day collectively on average, you're not going to want to go, because you're likely going to want to be somewhere, depending on your goals, depending on your activity level, depending on a number of things, you're probably going to want to be somewhere between 0.75 and 1.25 grams of protein per pound of body weight. Don't just go guess. Don't throw something at the wall. There's a way to figure that out.
Calculate it. I mean, you can figure it out.
You can, but you don't want to then go from 60 grams to 150 grams overnight, or you will feel awful. So
you'll be super constipated.
Yeah, you're going to want to slowly increase that by maybe 10, 15 grams week over week. Well, also, and this is where, like, taking the guesswork out and having a coach makes all the difference. But if you can at least start looking at your protein sources and how much protein are you getting per meal and slowly increasing your protein intake, it is the most thermogenic of the macronutrients. It's going to preserve your muscle, and it's also going to allow you to shed fat as long as you're not then getting too much of an excess of carbohydrates and fat, especially inflammatory types. And so
if you're like, whoa, this is super overwhelming, I can't figure this out, head over to macromavens.life, click the hop on board button, and a coach will reach out to you, because that's what we do, guys. We look at those numbers individually, we see where you're at, we start you at an appropriate spot for you, We don't throw you to the wolves, and then we walk alongside you the whole way. So
Yeah.
anyway, we're not here to sell ourselves, although we kind of are, I guess. But
I mean, it sells itself because
Yeah.
it you know, it
That's the
works,
thing.
and it works. And like, I just wish everybody had this information, because you don't have to live uncomfortable, and you don't have to live in a deprived state. Like, you just don't. The other thing outside of protein that I just want to touch on are also carbohydrates. We have a whole live on carbohydrates, but they are excellent sources of energy. However, if you can try to get the large majority of your carbohydrates from things like vegetables and whole fruits, preferably seasonal fruits, you're going to be getting fiber along with your carbohydrates, and you're going to be fueling your body with a lot of the micronutrients that you need. So trying to minimize the inflammatory grain products can be really helpful. Grains and sugars, I should say. So
Yeah.
really minimum, not that you can't fit them in, but if the large majority of your carbohydrates are coming from processed foods and sugars, then you're probably not going to be feeling good, and you probably are going to be more in of a storage mode.
Yeah. I think too, and I think this is worthy to say, a lot of people don't know that they don't feel good.
Yeah.
Until you are able to get to a point where your body is changing inside.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, man, I
Yeah.
feel really good. I felt that way for a long time.
Yeah.
I didn't know that like not feeling great every day, like that shouldn't be normal. Like, you should feel good every
Yeah.
single day.
Yeah, and you know, you might have seasons where your immune system's working a little harder or something like that, but you should be able to wake up and within a pretty short amount of time feel energetic, feel clear-minded. You shouldn't have to have that afternoon slump of energy. You shouldn't have to live with pain. You should be able to get deep restorative sleep. You should be able to process stress in a healthy way. Like, you should be able to have a somewhat normal menstrual cycle. You shouldn't have to deal with a lot of pain or discomfort leading up to your menstrual cycle, a lot of PMS. Like, we have normalized those things that are not
Yeah,
normal.
that aren't normal.
You
Yeah.
don't have to feel that way.
Yeah.
And what's so beautiful is that when you start eating in a balanced way for your goals, it translates in so many other areas like hormone harmony. So we talked about protein, we talked about carbohydrates. I just want to touch on fat, and that is, we already talked a little bit about fat, but utilizing healthy fats in your food intake really helps with hormone balance, which also helps with metabolism, which also helps with a healthy body fat. And so once again, it's, you know, we've done a lot of different discussions on it, like really trying to stick from foods from the ground, foods from the sea, foods that walk around. If you just look at whole foods, or you can say non-inflammatory foods, all of those things, they're all saying the same thing, right? Yeah. That doesn't mean you have to be 100%. You can fit in the things you like, but for the most part, that is what's going to fuel your body, fuel your brain, and help you have a healthy body fat.
Yep. Amen, girl.
So that was the nutrition component.
Yep. And honestly, that is the foundation. You
Yeah.
know, if you are looking to shed body fat, like I said earlier, start in the kitchen, because that's where the foundation should be. Now let's get into a little bit of some other, you want to talk about some other little things?
Yes.
I'm really excited, you guys, to talk about cold therapy.
I know, I love that.
You know, the reason I'm excited about it is because I've learned some new things, and I think that
How it simulates your brown fat.
But I
was
think-
saying that, and she was making fun
No,
of me
I
a while
wasn't making
ago.
fun of her. I just giggled. I thought it was funny. But I have some things, and maybe you already know this, but I've been doing it wrong, you guys. And I think you've been doing it wrong too.
Okay, well, let's not jump there yet.
About cold therapy?
You want to already? Because I think
We don't plan this, you guys.
So we've talked about nutrition. I really think that we should first
Let's
talk about
sleep and
water.
hydration. Okay, yeah, you're right, because those are the three. I said that a minute ago. Let's talk about sleep, you guys.
Ooh la la.
Sleep, and we have a whole live about sleep, because sleep is foundational to your health. If you are not getting good sleep most nights of the week, I would like to say every night of the week, but I don't know if that's totally realistic for every person. But if you're not getting good regenerative,
deep restorative
sleep most nights, then you are paying for it the next day. Whether it is obvious to you or not, if you wake up in the morning and you feel sluggish, it's hard to get out of bed, you don't have energy, you can't get moving until you have a cup of coffee.
You're not recovering from your workouts.
Yeah, you're not recovering from exercise, you want to take an afternoon nap. You know, all of those things are little flags that something can be improved typically with our sleep. And I know most people know when you don't sleep well. Emmy is a chronic example. Emmy is a great example of somebody who in the past has had really disturbed sleep. And she has since changed that, and she's like a new person. I mean, the birds sing in the morning.
Was I a bad person
No,
before?
I'm totally
No,
teasing.
I'm just joking.
I didn't know that she was a poor sleeper until she shared it with me, because she always has a sunny disposition. But
You guys, my life has changed since I understand how to get deep restorative sleep. And I measure it. I use an Oura ring so I can really see how much of my sleep is deep sleep versus REM sleep versus light sleep. And then of that, like what my latency is, what my resting heart rate is. Like I look at all of the things. And I just will say, I mean, we have a whole thing completely free. If you're not one of our clients, this is one of our free tools we have on the toolbox of our website. So go to macromavens.life, click on the toolbox. We have a lot of free tools there. One of them is our deep and restorative sleep overview. There are so many things you can do that cost nothing that can start moving you towards better sleep. We've done a whole live on it. We have the overview, so we won't go in there. If you've done all those things and you're still struggling, that's when you might want to consider using something like Super Sleep, which is a supplement that we've created that is like near and dear to our hearts because it has absolutely changed my sleep game. I will say I had improvement doing a lot of the natural free things as well, but then Super Sleep has been a game changer for me because part of my issue was I would have a cortisol spike in the middle of the night. I'd wake up, I'd have a racing brain, I'd think about all the things. And one of the things that Super Sleep does is not only does it allow you to get into a deep restorative sleep faster and stay in a deeper sleep state longer, but it also helps regulate your cortisol levels throughout the night so that they're peaking in the morning when they should and they're declining throughout the day, which also has an effect on metabolism. So we spent so much money on these individual supplements for so long, and then we're like, why don't we just find a,
why don't we just create one that works
and see if we can get these raw ingredients and have them third-party tested and check all the boxes? Like we did all the things, and it was a labor of love. We're obsessed. So
totally. I take it every single night without fail.
Yeah, and I think that it's naturally just helped me regulate my natural cortisol rhythm. We were talking about that this morning. But anyways, if you are not already giving any attention to your sleep, whether you track it or not, if you can start doing some of the things, once again, I don't want to get into them, but it's so hard not to, like as far as like a dark room, a cold room, minimizing or decreasing any unnatural light, like blue screens a couple hours before
bed. Like the TV, your phone, an iPad, like just turn them off. And if you're not going to turn them off, the iPhone and iPads have a mode where you can turn on nighttime mode where it eliminates the blue light, and anyway, your screen looks a little sepia,
at minimum,
a little
wear
orangish.
blue light blocking
glasses.
glasses.
Yeah,
like
you
stop
can get
eating
them
a
at
couple
Target.
hours before you go to bed. Like there's so many things you can do that will really help your sleep, and we have the data to show it. I mean, there's tons of research out there too, but
yeah, do your own research.
Yeah.
Experiment on yourself and find something that works. Emmy has a new tool for her that she's just started using in the recent history.
New tool?
Your new sleep tool. She wears earplugs.
Oh, I'm like, what tool do I have?
She wears earplugs, and it has actually, like, her sleep has been great, but it actually made her sleep even
You guys,
better.
I am getting like over 2 hours of deep sleep and over 2 hours of REM sleep every single night. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Like,
That's more than me. Like, that's off the charts.
Yeah, I mean, when you and I'm an efficient sleeper, and so I'll sleep between 6 and 7 hours a night. You should get around 8, but I'm an efficient sleeper, so I'm getting more than adequate deep sleep and REM sleep. And like earplugs, I can still hear my kids. I'm just such a light sleeper, and so it has been a game changer. And I found by default when on motorhome trips. So
yeah, we were parked by some train tracks, and the people were like, "You might want these," and she's like, "I want these for the rest of my life."
Okay, so far we've talked about body fat. What types of body fat are there? There's.
Every time she does this, she gets into some weird Southern accent. And
I want a Southern accent. I'm not very good at it. Sorry.
Oh man.
Also, I hope that you guys really appreciate the thumbnail for this live because Haley thinks it's awful.
I never said it was awful. For the record, that is not what I said. I said, I just don't know if it goes with the aesthetic of our feed.
Let us know what you think.
Anyway, you guys will see it as soon as we pop it up on there.
Oh, I forgot to free format before this.
You can fix it later. Anyway, you guys can let us know how you feel about the photo that she puts up when we're done with this live. So the different types of body fat there are besides the white, gray, and brown, there is
white, brown, and beige.
Did I think I keep saying gray?
Yeah, that's okay. Gray and beige are similar.
It's like grayish. Can we call it grayish?
Sure.
Let's start a new one. Grayish. There is subcutaneous, there's visceral, and then there is essential body fat. And the ways to attack the adipose tissue that you don't want, subcutaneous fat, we first talked about nutrition, and then we've talked about sleep, and next we're going to talk about hydration.
Yes, we are, but before we do that,
John Eaton says, hot cold therapy was the biggest single successful tool for sleep and rest for me. We're going to talk about hot cold therapy. That's what I keep wanting to jump there, John.
Yeah.
But we're going to get there. But for sleep, yes, absolutely 100% agree.
Although you shouldn't go in the cold before you go to bed.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about
Talk
that.
about that in a minute.
I had something real important that I wanted to share, but we're going to jump into hydration because now I don't remember it.
Yeah. So we talk about hydration a lot and how important it is. And if you are not getting at least minimum half of your body weight in ounces of water every day, you are most likely dehydrated. My daughter actually last night came upstairs and goes, Mom, and maybe this is TMI, but she doesn't have social media, so she'll never see this. But she's like, Mom, my pee's green. I was like, what? That's weird. And I was in bed. And she's like, I left it in the toilet so you could look at it. And I was like, perfect, great. And so I run downstairs and I take a look and I was like, girlfriend, you need to drink some water. She's like, well, I had water. And I said, well, did you drink, my kids are older. I was like, did you drink half of your body weight in ounces of water? And she's like, no, I didn't get that much. And so anyway, it's important. And your pee can tell you whether you're dehydrated or not. You want clear pee all day long. And I think it depends on what vitamins you take.
Well,
and I was going to say, you know what, if you take a vitamin, B vitamin, your pee might be neon.
Yeah.
And that's totally normal. Or if you eat beets, like if you're a beet eater, your pee might be a little bit pink. However, if you're not taking any vitamins or supplements and your pee is bright yellow, then you need to drink more water. And I think that probably most likely most people need to drink more water anyway.
And not only, and we talk about water all the time. So hydration equals energy. It really does. Yeah. But not only that, when we're talking about our metabolisms, it can have a profound effect on the effectiveness in which our metabolism works for us. And then also, if we're doing some of these things to try to minimize the size of the subcutaneous fat cell, water is going to help do that. And I know that sounds counterintuitive because you think water is going to plump, whereas when we're working hard to try to reduce the size of the subcutaneous fat cell, water is going to help flush toxins out. It's going to help us keep all of our cellular structure more hydrated, and it's going to help with the appearance of fat underneath that layer of skin as well.
It's going to help reduce the appearance of the fat.
And it's going to, in essence, help reduce the size of the subcutaneous fat cell, which is typically the visible fat that we're going to have directly under our skin.
Yeah. Also, when you hydrate your body properly, so in order to lose fat, our fat has to go through two processes. It has to be mobilized, which means we have to get it moving, and then it has to be oxidized, which means we need to burn it off, right? And I'm not going to get into the weeds about how we do those two things, but, well, we'll talk about it later. Anyway, you have to get it moving and then you have to oxidize it. If you're not properly hydrated, your body can't oxidize it through sweat, through your poop. It can't get rid of it. And so you need to be properly hydrated in order to excrete the oxidized fat out of your body.
Yeah. Okay, so I do think before we get into cold, we should talk about stress.
Fine.
I know, I'm sorry. Because maybe we can...
No, it's fine. Yeah. It's fine. It's good. I'll wait.
It'll
be the cherry on top because it's such good information.
It is. It is. Okay, you guys, when we are in a constant state of chronic stress, our bodies just are not going to function well for us. Now, we cannot eliminate stress entirely. Once again, we've done a whole live on stress, and we also have a free tool on our toolbox, macromavens.life toolbox. It's called Increasing Your Stress Resilience. What we do have the ability to do is to evaluate what our stressors are. Are there some that we can eliminate? And then how can we change how we react to the stressors in our life so that it is not creating so much detriment to all of our functions, specifically our nervous system, our endocrine system, and our immune system, and then our cognitive health. Because when we are creating that chronic stress, it's like chronic inflammation, honestly. And what's
Well, chronic stress creates
chronic inflammation.
Yeah.
It does. And then it doesn't allow our cells, our mitochondria within our cells to effectively and appropriately work. And it is wreaking havoc on our metabolisms. And so I think stress is equally as important as the other things that we've talked about. And so once again, if you feel like you're living in a constant state of chronic stress, now we're going to have acute stress from time to time for sure, but there are things that we can do to help create tools, and we've talked about a lot of them. Evaluation, social connection, breath work, exercise. Like there's so many things that we can do. Journaling, gratitude. Like go back and listen to the live on stress. In fact, maybe we'll repost it. And also, if you need some specific tools, check out that tool on our website. It really, it's so important, you guys. It's so important. Stress
sucks.
And
it'll suck the life out of you.
It
will.
It absolutely will. And we don't have to live in a high state of stress constantly. Even though our Western culture puts that on us, and even though we want to be high achievers, a high achiever does not have to equal chronic stress. It doesn't have to.
Mm-hmm. Nope.
Doesn't have to. I feel like I'm on my soapbox a lot today. I'm sorry. I was real passionate.
She's always passionate. I like that about her. Okay, so we've talked about nutrition, sleep, hydration, stress. What else do you have before we can get to what I want to talk about?
Let's jump in. Well, I do want to talk about movement, but we could do that
Oh,
after.
yeah. Let's talk about movement after. Or we can talk about it now. I have things to say about movement, too.
Go for it.
Okay, so like I said earlier, people tend to want to start a gym membership or go to the gym first before tackling nutrition, sleep, hydration, and all the other things we've talked about.
I'm going to do cardio for 30 minutes and work my butt off, and then I'm going to take 15 seconds and drink a Coca-Cola and wipe it all out.
Wow, she is passionate today, guys.
Sorry.
Now, there is a place for movement. We all need to move our bodies every single day. We are huge exercise proponents. Do not get us wrong. We exercise daily.
Move your body and slay every single day.
Listen to her spitting rhymes.
This morning, we'll get back on topic, I promise. We were working out, and it was a Dr. Dre Snoop Dogg song that came on. Haley, let me just tell you something about Haley. Haley knows every word to every rap song from like
everyone.
the 80s and 90s.
Not everyone, but
well,
a lot.
I mean, this girl, and she's like, yeah, I was spitting rhymes, but I was like,
No,
whoa,
I
whoa,
said
whoa, whoa.
this one. I said I can't spit the rhymes on this one because it was a little bit newer. So anyway.
But she's like, I'm like, spit the rhymes?
And then she's like, I'm going to use that today. And I knew she forgot. That's why I threw it in there for her.
I love that. She spits rhymes, guys. I
mean,
knew
not
how to
like
spit
as
rhymes.
a profession. I'm not like,
Yeah,
like,
no, she's
like-
a professional.
like in my car when I'm alone.
In fact, we have a reel of her spitting rhymes. I'm going to find that too.
Oh, goodness. Oh, my gosh. Anyway, let's talk about movement because movement is crucial to losing fat. And it's obviously people's want to go to. And so I think that it's really important.
You gotta move, you gotta group, you gotta get up and... Sorry.
Here we go. She's thinking it through. But there are different things that you can do. And this is actually going to touch into a little bit about what I was going to say. Well, and I'll just say it. The more you move your body, whether it is at the gym during a specific workout that you have planned, if it's with a trainer, if it's lifting weights, if it's cardio, regardless, you are burning calories. And burning calories helps you to lose body fat as long as you are burning more calories than you're taking in, and the quality of the calories that you are taking in. What are you doing?
I was reading John's comment.
Oh, sorry.
I was engaging with our audience.
No, she was like, sorry, and you distracted me from my
sorry.
thought. Anyway, moving your body every day, that movement burns calories. Burning calories is what's going to help you lose that body fat that is so stubborn and that you want to lose. Now, I'm not saying you need to go to the gym and kill yourself every single day. All I'm saying is you need to move your body, and it looks different for different people. I was actually listening to a podcast, and it was talking about fasting, whether you fast before you exercise or not, and like what the effects of fasting during exercise do. And I thought it was super fascinating. I don't want to get into any of that here, but if you need to fuel yourself before you go to the gym, that's totally fine. If that's what works for you, great, especially if you work out later on in the day. If you don't, if you work out fasted and that feels good to you, great. There is not a win or a lose when it comes to that. The biggest thing is to find an exercise regimen that you love, that you can stick with and that you can do every day. And if you don't have something that you love, then try something. Yeah. Try a spin class, try a yoga class, try just getting up out of your seat every day and walking around your house. So there's tons of movement that you can do that requires no gym membership, not even leaving your house. You can just get up and move your body. And the more you move your body, whether it's fidgeting, I had talked about fidgeting earlier, like fidgeting is a form of calorie burn. You can burn calories by sitting and fidgeting. If you bounce your leg, if you pace while you talk on the phone, if you Emmy likes to do this a lot with her pencil. I often take it away from her because she does it in my face.
It's actually not very nice of me. I don't mean
she's
to
not
be rude.
like doing that, but anyway, just fidgeting and moving, getting up. If you're sitting down and you're working on your computer, get up and move every hour. Yeah. Take a lap around your house. The other night, I'll tell you a quick story. I hadn't gotten enough. Emmy likes this story.
I do. It's hilarious.
I hadn't gotten enough movement in during the day, and my kids were gone. My house was totally empty, and I was like, you know what? I want to watch the Britney Spears documentary because that sounds interesting and like a total like
out of context for her.
Yeah, totally. I was like, I want to watch it. It sounds interesting. And so we have a TV in our kitchen. I turned on the TV, and then I looked at my watch because it tracks my steps, and I hadn't gotten enough movement in. And I just started doing laps in my kitchen, just walking around my island. My kitchen isn't huge, but it's big enough to I could walk around it. And I walked, you guys, for 3 miles in my kitchen.
Like, hilarious.
3 miles. After the documentary was over, I looked at my watch and I was like, dang, I walked for 3 miles. Awesome. And so you
versus sitting on a couch. Not that there's anything wrong with resting too. I think that's important. But absolutely. I love that story. I want to mention a couple things on movement. One, we started this by saying how nutrition makes the biggest impact, and it absolutely does. The transition or transformation that we shared last Friday, there was the exact same amount of movement in the before and the after. That was 100% nutrition. And so
go look at that transformation, you guys. It's incredible.
If you are coming to us from a more sedentary lifestyle, we are first going to work with you on nutrition. Once we dial that in, we're going to work with you on moving your body a little bit. And the moving the body part isn't as much for your physical changes as it is just that it's so important for your longevity and for your brain, honestly. I also want to add that muscle does burn more fat. So a lot of women specifically are afraid of muscle, but it takes a ton of fuel and a ton of heavy weights to build a significant amount of muscle, especially on a female frame. And so doing some form of resistance training, if you're open to moving your body, is really going to help with having some lean muscle mass, which is going to help you in your calorie burning. And so I think that when you're looking at overall movement in terms of what is going to get you the furthest, the fastest, I do think it's finding what you enjoy. That's definitely important. But I think having some form of resistance training in there and then just increasing your overall low intensity, steady state movement. So just moving your body more, walking more, parking further away, taking the stairs, all those little things really add up and it leads to longevity. Yeah. If you love cardio, great, but cardio's probably not going to get you that close to your goals. I like high intensity movement. I like to breathe hard. So I fit that in. I could probably be more effective in doing more strict strength training. I don't enjoy it as much, and so that's not entirely what I do. So you have to enjoy what you do.
Absolutely. Find something you love and then do it.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into cold therapy.
Yeah. Okay, we've talked about nutrition. We've talked about sleep. We've talked about hydration. We've talked about stress. We've talked about movement. And now we're going to talk about...
Let's talk about cold. And I just want to talk about cold specifically, not necessarily coupled with heat, but just cold specifically because I learned some things that I've been doing wrong. And she's been doing wrong, and we've been doing it wrong.
Oh,
and
I'm so curious where you're going with this.
When it comes to specifically targeting fat loss, there is a formula that we should be doing when it comes to cold exposure. And some of you are gonna like it, and some of you are not gonna like it, and that's just the way it goes. But we're gonna do it the next time, because we cold plunge this morning. Usually on Mondays we'll sauna and then we'll cold plunge, and we cold plunge this weekend, and it's just, it's kind of a part of what we do. So if your goal for the cold, if you're doing cold specifically for fat loss, we've been told over and over again that you need to stay in the cold for 1 to 3 minutes, right? And then that's what's going to trigger your brown fat to tell your beige, not your gray, but your beige fat to kick into gear. It mobilizes, so cold 1 mobilizes your fat, which is what we want. You cannot burn fat unless it's mobilized. So cold mobilizes your fat, and then it helps you to oxidize it to get it out of your body. So we've been told, stay in the cold.
Cold also activates your brown fat,
It
which
does.
we talked about earlier.
Which
and that's
burns.
a good thing.
Yep, your brown fat actually helps you burn more white fat. So we've been told to stay in the cold water for, 1 to 3 minutes is fine. Upwards of 3 minutes, great. However,
depends on the temperature of the water too, though.
well, okay, so listen to this, because this is going to blow your minds. Well, it blew my mind.
I'm so anxious.
So you get in the cold water and you stay in it until you hit your shiver response, because shivering does this thing. Did I write down the word? Let me find this word. Yes. Shivering triggers succinate, succinate. It triggers succinate in our bodies. And succinate is what tells our body to move fat and to oxidize fat. When we shiver, it's our body's natural response. It triggers our brown fat, right? Our brown fat helps with thermoregulation, keeping us warm. It triggers our brown fat, and our body starts moving. It's this very little movement. Everybody has shivered before, and you start shivering.
I get to my shiver response fairly fast.
She does. And so you start shivering, and that's what gets everything going in your body. So then, here's the protocol. You get in the cold water, you start shivering, you get out. You get out for 1 to 3 minutes until your body temperature regulates again, and then you get back in. And you get back in until you hit your shiver response, and you do this 2 or 3 times, several days a week, and that is going to target your adipose tissue faster than if you just get in the cold and stay in the cold for 5 to 10 to 7 minutes. Also, and this blew my mind, I didn't even know this, you guys. When we get in the cold, one of the things that we do is it helps us to deal with stressful situations. When we get in the cold,
Our stress resilience.
and we get control of our breath, and we control our sympathetic nervous system, right? We like, in our parasympathetic nervous system, and we want to be in control of that. Okay, what that does, you guys, is it teaches our body to ignore the shiver response. So it actually is telling us not to start shivering, to start burning that fat. So getting in and like being shocked because it's cold is good, and then staying in, and like Emmy and I often will have a conversation in there, and we'll chat, and it's not necessarily like a measured breathing exercise, although we have done that in the past.
But it's relaxing.
It's relaxing. It helps take your mind off of the cold, but oftentimes you won't hit your shiver response until much later, if at all. Like even this morning, like I never started shivering this morning. I just think that the water was a little bit too warm for me. But anyway, if you can do that protocol 2 to 3 times a week, you can do it in your shower. If you get in the cold shower and you can stay in until you start shivering, turn the water off, get your body temperature back to normal-ish, and then turn the water back on, get cold, get back to shivering. And then what I was listening to, they were talking about how you don't need to do this forever. Like you actually want your body to respond to cold the way it's supposed to, which means if you get really highly sensitized or desensitized to cold to where you can be in cold water, for a very long time without it affecting you, then you actually have to work much harder to burn that fat than if you were to do it for a couple of months and then to stop doing the cold therapy for however long and then start again. So the more cold adaptive you are, the colder it has to be, the longer you have to stay in before you hit the shiver response, which makes sense to me. So anyway, I am super excited that the next time we do this, that we're going to try this little protocol and kind of see.
I love it.
Yeah.
And I think that, we talk about it really helping your stress resilience. It obviously can help with fat loss. But it's also, there's so many benefits to your immune system and your overall nervous system. My 10-year-old we don't ask him to do this. He's just one of those that like loves to understand what we're doing, and then he like always wants to do it. So he goes out back behind our house. Well, he'll go in our cold plunge, but he'll just use the freezing, we're on a farm, the freezing cold hose, and he sprays himself down, or he'll have me spray himself down. He'll run around outside and, you know, knock on wood. Like, he has a really strong immune system. And so I just think that there are so many benefits to effective cold exposure, and you don't need to have some fancy equipment. Like Haley said, you can do a cold shower, a cold hose, whatever it is. But you know, there is such a thing as too much of a good thing.
Yeah.
And so, just be smart, and everybody has, and I really like what she's saying, because I've oftentimes like given myself a really hard time. That's like, I just can't stay in there as long as other people, because my shiver response comes early. And so this actually makes me feel a little bit better.
I thought it would. I knew she'd like it. I feel like there was one more thing I was going to say in regards to that. Oh, so one of the reasons why this works to really target your fat is because it all has to do with our body temperature regulation. And so when we are cold and we are shivering, and our body has to go through all of this, you know, physical, chemical, like all of this stuff happens within our bodies when we're cold, just to warm us up. And so if you think about babies with all of that brown fat, you know, that's the only protection that they have against cold. And they can't regulate that. And so when we make our bodies cold on purpose, and then, so here's the thing. So the way I like to finish the cold plunge is in the sauna, right? Because nobody wants to end on the cold. You want to like get warm again. But what we should be doing is we should be getting out of the cold water and then allowing our bodies to warm up naturally, and that will actually burn even more fat than going back in the sauna and getting warm before we're done with our day. Which is difficult because it's uncomfortable, right? But we have to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
We do.
And that's just life.
We do.
So anyway, I was so excited to tell you guys all about that. I'm really excited. I'm actually excited for my cold shower tomorrow.
I love that.
Yeah.
I have not, it's funny, I have definitely adapted, which doesn't sound like it's like the best thing. Do you have to do it in the morning, or could the evening? Okay, so that's a great question, because there is some new research that's showing that cold exposure, because it can affect your energy, like in a positive way, is most effective earlier in the day. Some people,
but not necessarily for fat loss, like
right. If you're looking at it for just fat loss,
like
then it can be done anytime. Yeah. However, I just think some people that are more sensitive, it could disturb your sleep if you're doing it at night. I do know some people that swear that the cold exposure actually helps them with their sleep. I think that might have something to do with going to bed with a slightly reduced body temperature, which actually can help get into deep sleep faster. But if it gives you that energetic surge, then it's probably not the best thing to do before bed. So I think it's kind of individual.
Yeah. Try it at night. And if you sleep great, wonderful. Yeah. If you have a hard time going to sleep, we're sorry.
Yeah, well, sure. Okay, guys, so we're going to wrap up here. We've been talking about body fat, all things body fat. And honestly, it's not even about the body image component. It's really about health. Like, we know without a shadow of a doubt that too much visceral body fat leads to disease. It's so dangerous. I'm going to have boys coming in my back door, so sorry about that. We talked about the difference between white fat, brown fat, beige fat, why that's important
Grayish
to know.
fat.
Yeah, we talked about the difference between subcutaneous fat and visceral fat. We
essential
talked about,
fat.
Yeah, why it's important to have fat, the role of essential fat, especially in hormone production. And then we talked about what we can do to effectively minimize our unhealthy fat storage. And the thing I wanted to say earlier just came to me. I guess maybe I need to eat some more healthy fats today, because my brain just doesn't quite seem to. Yeah.
What do you want to say?
I just thought of it, and then it escaped me again.
Then it must not have been terribly important.
It was really important, you guys. If I remember, I'll story on it later.
She will.
I will. And you guys, it doesn't have to be super complicated. They're all little things that we can do, but it's so important to have an awareness.
I have a fact. I have a fact that just popped into my brain.
Okay, let's hear it.
I was talking about fidgeting and like moving your body, just like what's it called? Low
intensity steady state.
Yeah. So anyway, just fidgeting, bouncing your knee. There was a study done in the UK, and I can't remember the name of it or anything like that or the details, sorry. But they monitored people. They had like a control group with people who didn't fidget and all of the things, and then they had another group of people who were fidgeters, hand talkers, people who would get up and walk around when they talked. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
The people who fidgeted and would get up and move, would pace on the phone, burned upwards from 800 to 1,000 more calories a day.
Wild. That's
a
wild.
day, you guys.
Yeah.
Just by like shaking a pencil or bouncing your knee or you know, getting up and walking around while you're talking on the phone. Like those are simple things
They're
you can
simple
do
things.
right now.
Yeah. And if you don't have the energy for it, you might need to be eating more.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. So then the things we talked about to do about it are, we talked a lot about nutrition. We talked about hydration. We talked about sleep. We talked about movement. And we talked
Stress.
about stress, resilience. And then we also talked about cold exposure.
therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you guys have any questions, if you're interested in potentially working with a coach one-on-one to really help you get where you want to be, go over to macromavens.life, click the hop on board button. It doesn't commit you to anything, but it does allow one of our coaches to get in touch, answer questions, see if we're a good fit, and if we are, we'll get you started.
Yep. I was going to say something, but it's gone. Have a great week, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much for
Yep.
joining us. Let us know if you have questions or if you have anything to add to the discussion.
Totally. See you later.
Bye.